Hi there, do you need leaves removed from your driveway? Have you got a weed problem? Your shrubs need pruning. Are you a lawyer for a newly defeated president whose fascist administration has accidentally hired a garden center to host a press conference on voter fraud?
Then you need to pay us a visit here at Four Seasons Total Landscaping.
Whether your lawn needs a bit of sprucing up, or if you just need a filthy, dirty parking lot next to an adult bookstore to host a spontaneous presidential campaign event because you got a suburban garden center mixed up with a luxury hotel, we are here for you.
Yes, it is Friday, November 13th, 2020. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Out the Coop podcast. Each week I talk to the cure for the Fox News death cult, Sean Kitchen, about the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. Just a little heads up, everybody, today is like, apparently the powers that be are throttling Sean's internet a little bit, so it might be a little touch and go at times. Just want to give you everybody a heads up. But anyways, we are back, and it feels like it's been, I don't know, forever. But it's only been a week. Yes, it's rather old news, I know by now, but damn! Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are now officially president and vice president-elect. Whoop! And the celebrations exploded across the country this week. And in the other news, it was another record-setting week of COVID-19 cases across the nation. The U.S. has more than 10.5 million cases and 240,000 deaths as of last night. The CDC is projecting that there may be upwards of 282,000 COVID deaths by December 5th, given our current trajectory. Pfizer and its German partner BioNTech, I guess is how you say it, BioNTech announced that the initial trials, they have a COVID vaccine that is 90% effective. Thank freaking God for that. Although Anthony Fauci was saying this week that we're probably looking at April before that vaccine is going to be widely available. So strap in. We're still months away from that vaccine. But, you know, hey, the pharma giant is asking for emergency approval from the FDA to speed up production. And we should also mention that after they announced that on Monday, the CEO of Pfizer cashed in a whole chunk of stock after the stock went through the roof. Increased by 8% or something like that. Anyways. Well, Trump's lawyers and his lawsuits, they got bupkis. Georgia's presidential election results are going to a hand recount. That's right, everybody. A hand recount. Gotta love that. Democrats and Republicans are also gearing up for high-stakes state-run elections in January. Big deal. Conservative corporate Democrats lose their shit on progressives on an election post-mortem conference call. Well, maybe it's because they're feeling the impending sunset on their neoliberal paradigm. What do you think about that? No? Maybe. AOC was having none of it, though. She gave an interview to the New York Times diagnosing the Dems' organizational malpractice. And despite centrist attempts to blame black activists and socialism, even Doug Jones and Beto O'Rourke are making the same case. So go run and hide, I guess. New scientific research published in the journal Scientific Reports suggests that we may already be beyond the much-feared point of no return when it comes to climate change. According to the study, even if we were to stop emitting all greenhouse gases by the end of 2020, we are still on track for warming of 3 degrees Celsius or 5.4 degrees Fahrenheit by 2500. That translates into at least an 8-foot rise in the world's oceans. The only hope, according to the report, is a massive investment in carbon capture technology in addition to getting off fossil fuels. And in more climate news, 2020 officially set the record for the most hurricanes in the Atlantic, because of course it did. It's freaking 2020 after all. Hurricanes and tropical storms are taking much longer to weaken over land, causing much more damage than storms did 50 years ago. That's more new research. And just in case you needed one more thing, Russian researchers found large areas of methane gas being released from the melting subsea permafrost from the seabed on the East Siberian Arctic shelf. The pictures of that were pretty freaking crazy, as you saw the bubbles rising up in the ocean waters. Yeah, I know. Buzzkill. Yeah, I know. Just really needed to be clear that a Green New Deal is not just a progressive slogan. Got that, Abigail Spanberger? It's an imperative for a livable future. That so-called whistleblower from the Postal Service, that one from up in Erie, PA? Yeah, well, those Republican operatives were hanging their hats on that voter fraud case up in Erie by this Postal Service worker, but turns out Postal Service worker says, no, actually, this agent Project Veritas, they actually wrote the affidavit. David, I didn't really see anything. You remember Project Veritas, right? They're the folks, the little pranksters from the right wing that took down Acorn through kind of deceptive video footage. Yeah, those folks. So again, bupkis. Yes, and more locally, Lawn and Order. Make America rake again. In Sod we trust. Yes, these are just a few of the hot t-shirts that you can get from Four Seasons Total Landscaping, the spot that Rudy Giuliani and co. booked to host a press conference in Philly. It was rumored that he had stopped off at the adult bookstore next door before moseying on over to the crematorium to check out their offerings. That song drop, by the way, that you heard, the sound drop that you heard is today in today's intro is from UK-based comedian Michael Spicer, and you can follow him on Twitter at Mr. Michael Spicer, Spicer. Pennsylvania Republicans are gearing up for show hearings next week in the House and Senate. They will poke and prod the election results to create their own baseless narrative about the 2020 election and use that to curtail voting rights in Pennsylvania for years to come. And COVID cases are exploding in Pennsylvania, just like the rest of the country. On Wednesday, PSEA called for a shift to remote learning for 38 counties that meet the guidelines set by the State Department of Health and Education. That's 100 or more cases per 1,000 residents. PSEA President Rich Askey noted that remote learning is not ideal, but our concern is that in-person instruction in communities with substantial spread of the virus will put the health and safety of everyone in those schools and communities at risk. Yeah, the Proud Boys, remember those folks, yep, they're having their own little post-election schism. Yep, white nationalist Kyle Chapman says he's sick of pretending not to be a Nazi. Apparently, the Proud Boys are too soft for his liking. On some very sad news from Kutztown University, a student was found dead in Dixon Hall, a campus dorm. In a statement released by the university today, the university said, quote, Pennsylvania State Police, working in conjunction with KU Police, have confirmed the deceased KU student as Hannah Varn, a 31-year-old arts administration graduate student from Iowa who lived in Dixon Hall. State police have confirmed that no foul play is suspected and there is no danger to the Kutztown campus community as a result of the incident. That's all we have. Those are the only details we have. We don't know what the cause of death is. But man, our thoughts and all of our positive energy and love is going to the family of Hannah Varn. Today's last call, 4 astronauts are scheduled to launch tomorrow from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Yeah, they'll be aboard a SpaceX crew capsule as part of NASA and SpaceX Crew 1 mission to the International Space Station. This will be the official mission, first mission, crewed mission to the International Space Station. Remember, SpaceX had a first successful launch at a kind of a test version where they were just getting the astronauts up. Now this is kind of full-on mission. NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine says he plans to leave the agency when Biden takes office. Biden has already announced his NASA transition team, led by Ellen Stofan, the current head of the Smithsonian's Air and Space Museum and former NASA chief scientist from 2013 to 2016. Looks like NASA will reprioritize climate research and push back the Artemis moon mission until 2028. That is, by the way, a timeline more consistent with the House Science Committee's proposed bill to send astronauts back to the moon. Sean took some awesome photos this week, and now he's got a quarantine. Gotta love that. Free Will's got some amazing releases ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday, which may or may not happen for most Americans. They got another Roadblock, which is a Helles Bock Lager. Special Cookie, their annual Imperial Spice Brown Ale. And Free Will's version of the Black is Beautiful collab is finally coming out. That's a collaboration with Harris Family Brewery and First Sip Brew Box. That's going to be released Saturday. That's tomorrow, 11/14. And it is a robust coffee porter. And you can get cans and draft pours at both Percy and Peddler's Village tap rooms. Pretty good. They came out with the original one, like your initial one. They were about to release it, and then they decided to hold off on it because we talked about this on the podcast because it wasn't quite what they wanted. They didn't like the way it came out. They were trying to do this really interesting kind of collab, and it didn't quite come out the way that they wanted to. So they rebooted, and now it's ready. And the 2020 Ralphius bottle variants have been announced. They will be available at Freewheel's online store starting 9 a.m. on 11/21. That's next Friday, I guess. Next Friday, next Thursday, something like that. Saturday, like that. But they will be available for pickup on Black Friday, 11/27, in the Percy Tap Room. And we'll run through the different flavors. Listen to me. The different variants you'll be able to get. There's some awesome ones in this mix. But we'll talk about that in today's last call. Want to remind everybody, tune in to The Rick Smith Show on Free Speech TV this and every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can stream the show live at freespeech.org and also tune in the Dish Network, DirecTV, or through the Free Speech TV app on Roku. And make sure you subscribe to Rick's daily podcast on iTunes, Podbean, or wherever you get your podcasts. And yes, if you were waiting around for this week's Out the Coop Live passed on Monday, well, sorry about that, folks. I had a pipe in my basement decide to kind of go sideways and start leaking. So I spent my Monday, where I normally do the Out the Coop Live, taking down a ceiling and getting the pipes repaired. And the leak was about 3 feet from my computer setup. I was very thankful that did not go south. But we were going to have some folks on from PA Stands Up on Monday's show. And right now we're trying to coordinate some time for to have them back on this coming Monday show. So stay tuned for details. Check us out on social media, our Facebook page, and so on. We will be doing that. And I'll tell you, Facebook, the Out to Coop Live, that's just kind of one of the new features. So what I ended up doing that Monday night is I ended up running our first Facebook Live. So I did that, kind of gave everybody a little update and so on. That was a lot of fun. Had some people kind of join in and kind of talk. So I'm going to do some more of those too as well as part about expanding our kind of reach on different platforms. I want to remind everybody, look, if you're watching right now on our YouTube channel, if you're kind of like want to head on over there, we're going to be we broadcast on our YouTube channel live every time we do an Out to Coop Live, every time we do this podcast, a regular Out to Coop. And some other special features will be broadcast there too as well. If you're over on our YouTube page, go visit us over there, subscribe to our YouTube page, make sure we kind of get those subscriptions up, like us, leave us comments. We'll be taking comments and discussions right live through the show from our YouTube page. But the more likes, the more subscriptions you get. You'll make sure, number one, you'll never miss a live show, and number two, it helps us get seen by more people. So subscribe wherever you get this. When you're subscribing to our podcast, making sure you're leaving us a review, giving us the 5 stars on iTunes. That'd be fantastic. Fantastic. So if we want a progressive future, everybody, we need progressive media, and we're going to need that now more than ever that we got the 2020 election in the rearview mirror. You can help support Pull No Punches homegrown progressive media today. Become a patron of Raging Chicken for as little as $5 a month. Just go to patreon.com/rcpress and choose your membership level. We are expanding and we're preparing for the fight for our lives in a Biden administration. We're not asking you to break the bank. We're asking you to become a member for the price of a good beer once a month. Help keep the media in the movement in the media. Become a member for as little $5 a month by going to patreon.com/rcpress today. Crazy. So everybody, here we are. Sean, you there, man?
Yes, I am. How are you?
All right, he is there. If you're watching us on YouTube right now, you'll see that Sean is a black box at the moment. I'm going to get, as we're talking, I'm going to look to get that replaced with a photo. Sean's having some internet issues this morning. Looks like he's getting throttled. That'd be my guess. Or it just weather.
I think everyone is probably on the internet right now. So, man, how great does it feel? I mean, I don't know where to begin. Do we start with the celebrations on Saturday or what?
Yeah, man, have at it.
I mean, so Saturday, I was taking pictures for our last rally. We were getting ready for the rally. I walked up to the Capitol around 11 o'clock. And there were about 100 Trump supporters, 200 Trump supporters on the Capitol steps not wanting to leave. And as we were kicking them off the steps, they called the race for Joe Biden, and a celebration took part. And a riot almost broke out with the Trump supporters. But it was it was amazing, like watching these people like disintegrate in real time. Like the best thing I could, it's like the end of the Lord of the Rings when the Tower of Sauron falls and just boom, everyone just disintegrates. That's what it was like in real life.
There you go. There's Sean. I'm bringing your picture right down into the show. There you go. It's a little messy, but I think that'll work. So at least if people know who I'm talking to.
But man, I could not it was one of the most amazing feelings as an activist over the past 4 years to actually do this and pull this off. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, man, it's absolutely incredible. I mean, this is absolutely incredible. You know, and again, we're seeing the. Sorry, I just got a little distracted as I'm trying to just make sure that we got your picture up there. Sorry about that. But I mean, I got to say, it was. There's so much.
I mean, this felt like a celebration of like defeating a dictator.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, it's like, you know, look, I mean, you just can't underplay the effects of winning, you know, and having the fruits of your labor being, you know, kind of recognized in such an amazing way. I mean, you know, I think that, I mean, we've talked about this on the podcast, like for, you know, multiple times, is that this has been a freaking absolutely exhausting and
4 years.
Yes. And like, I mean, like, and emotionally really just draining. I mean,
like personally, I feel like I did in the weeks leading up to the election. I mean, obviously the strain of that, but like even over the past 4 years,
yeah.
Like, I mean, I cried Saturday night once they called the race, just from like the emotional toll of the past 4 years, how it felt like winning, but also like the fucking like pain and suffering that like people had to put through, the 200,000 plus dead from the coronavirus, you know, the disaster of Hurricane Maria, that like the unnecessary like pain and suffering people have had to endure through this. And as a movement, like, you know, like all those emotions came out, but like on the other side of this, it feels really good right now.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. And I think that, you know,
I think like it brought all of us together as a movement. You know, I talked to one of my friends who is a Republican lobbyist in Harrisburg, closer to my age. And, you know, like he did not go down, you know, this election was stolen route and stuff like this, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. Like he spent 10 or 15 minutes talking about how organized the progressive movement got within Pennsylvania over the past 4 years and how we were able to self-organize the left. And I mean, you saw that in the reactions of the Republicans over the past like couple weeks. You know, the day after the election, Jake Corman goes after the dark money groups and the progressive activism in Pennsylvania. Same with other Republicans. I mean, like, and the ironic thing is they did this outside the Kamala Foundation building. Side note, but like the self-organizing that has went into, we organized ourselves.
Yeah.
And we see the fruits of this labor, but now we have this machine and what's our next thing on the agenda, right? Like, we're not going to stop with this 2020 election. You know, we're going to make sure we protect our courts. We're going to make sure the Republicans don't, you know, we have attacks against our elections coming up. We have attacks against our court systems in Pennsylvania coming up, and they're doing this out of retribution, you know, because of this election, and because of like the organizing work that the left has been putting in Pennsylvania. They see us as a threat. You know, people like the legislature does, but the Republican lobbyists I was talking to see us as a threat because of our organizing prowess.
Right.
And like these people are taking notice.
Right. And
it's going to be interesting to see what the response is.
Yeah, I tell you. I
mean, also we're seeing what happened, like the disorganization of the right. I mean, Trump is a fascist strongman, and like you see what happens once you topple a fascist, their fucking movement disintegrates with them. Now, yeah, we're going to deal with white reactionaries and stuff like that for the years to come. We're going to have to deal with these people. You know, these people aren't going away. His supporters, his hardcore white nationalist supporters, the fringe base of the Republican Party, you know, they're going to double down.
Right.
And we're going to have to out-organize them for years to come. But, you know, like they don't have that organizational infrastructure.
Exactly. exactly.
I mean, they're a bunch of hot air in a vacuum.
Well, I think that what do I want to say? I mean, I've got so much going through my mind right now.
Also,
go ahead.
I want to say it was amazing fucking with these people on Saturday and Sunday. Like, I mean, just like
thing.
watching these people go walk around and, still think that like they're just like wandering in the fucking forest with not knowing what's going on. Yourself, and I like a couple people were like honking their horns. And I start yelling losers at them, and they stopped their car and started screaming at me. It's like losers, like like you people are a bunch of fucking losers, sore losers, and all that stuff. Like, and it felt great. Like it feels great, like chiding these people. I'm not gonna sit back and lie. Like
totally.
It was gratifying. Like I'm not gonna take winning with grace, especially with these people.
Yeah, no shit, man.
I mean, like like the fuck that for the shit we had to put up for the past 4 years. I have to get my like enjoyment in.
Right. Well,
and kicking these people off the Capitol steps on Saturday was one of the most empowering things. Like, we had the permit to be there. They started screaming, so we took over the microphone and started counting. This is what democracy looks like. Count every vote and stuff like that. And
right.
they just fucking they were just screaming at us. The videos I put up on my Twitter page. The one guy go, "Fuck you, fuck you," just like screaming like uncontrollably. Like I was watching videos like the Schadenfreude of these people like just totally losing their fucking shit. Like it's just amazing. Like like Hillary Clinton supporters, we didn't act like that in 2016. We were pissed. We didn't act like that. We didn't outburst like a fucking child. No, we sat down, we organized, and this is the end result.
Right. And I think that's the best frame that we could possibly have going forward is like to recognize that, right? Is that as devastating as 2016 was. And like, I mean, I literally, my wife and I were talking about this at one point where it just, that next day, right, in 2016 was
so fucking terrible.
It was just like, it was traumatic. I mean, it really was, like in ways that I don't think, I don't even think like we could fully appreciate at the time how
stayed
traumatic
in bed and cried all day.
Like, no, seriously. I mean, seriously. And I remember I had to work the next day, and I made the mistake of going to work, and I should never have gone to work. I mean, the halls were empty. I'll never forget this, actually. The halls were empty. A lot of people just didn't come in. People that I did see, most of them had like tears in their eyes, especially women. I think that I don't think we could also kind of, I mean, for us, like you and I, can fully appreciate the differential impact for so many women, right? I mean, because to see, it wasn't just that Hillary Clinton lost; it was to that guy.
Yeah.
So, and I think that was just absolutely devastating. I mean, if I was devastated, and when I saw my colleagues, especially my women colleagues, who were just wrecked. And then I remember seeing this one guy. He works at Kutztown. He works in the facilities department, and he was in the building. And this is a guy that I had actually helped try to strategize with several times about kind of like what to do with kind of in the union, right? Because they were just getting wrecked, and he was a representative of the union and things like this. And he comes around the corner and he's got this big freaking Trump shirt on, right? And like practically, I mean, he wasn't, right, but practically hooting and hollering in there as like, walking by, seeing like, especially, again, so women colleagues and some of the clerical staff who are devastated in seeing that. And I just remember that scene so much. And to know that what came out of that, despite 4 freaking years of absolute hell. I mean, literally, if you think about what we just went through, kids in cages, for Christ's sake, like a racist, like foreign policy. Right?
Raging pandemic.
Raging pandemic. I mean, the pandemic in some ways was like the cherry on the fucking cake. You know what I'm saying?
I have friends from Puerto Rico who could not bury their parents or their grandparents. Like they don't know what happened to their grandparents' body after
Maria.
One of the organizers, after Hurricane Maria, like a friend of ours who's an organizer with Lancaster Stands Up and PA Stands Up. His grandmother passed away before Hurricane Maria, and they're never able to find her body afterwards and give her like for a deeply Catholic
Right.
and religious background, like stuff like that, you
Right.
know.
I mean,
no, the
and,
horrible racism, and
I mean, and you think about, I mean, you know, I mean, yes, I mean, embolden racists, right? I mean, I just Charlottesville, right? I mean,
one of the things I think,
like wildfires, unprecedented wildfires, which you have like a government that just failed to do freaking anything about. I mean, I just can't. It's going to take a while, I think, in this aftermath, just to kind of like, just be like, holy shit, what did we just live through? But to know that in the wake of that, like, the response was organizing. We had the kind of like the 2018 victories of kind of like the squad, right? We saw like, you know, progressive moves in states across the country in 2018, big ones, right? And we saw like a recommitment on the left of just the kind of nuts and bolts of organizing in communities, of talking to people, and not just kind of like spouting these kind of like ideological platitudes, but actually doing the hard work of organizing. Which is, you know, this is one of the things that really pissed me off most about, you know, that conference call that kind of got aired where, you know, Abigail Spanberger and a whole bunch of the other centrists were chastising, you know, like the squad and the kind of the left for like, you know, the defund the police messaging and the socialist stuff is what almost lost me my seat and what lost us this election, right? After the defeats in the House. Right? It's like the fact is that
there's still people who haven't learned a fucking thing.
Well, the progressive left, right? I mean, and this is what the AOC, you know, said in that piece, right? That you know, the interview in the New York Times, and then it was echoed by Doug Jones, for all people, in Alabama, and then Beto O'Rourke, I think just yesterday, like did a similar kind of diagnosis, right, about how the Democratic Party is virtually absent in between presidential elections all along the border area, right? I mean, so you look at El Paso, where he's like, there's nobody here. And that is essentially what AOC was talking about, right? Is about the idea that there's not a commitment to party building in between elections.
We see this in our cities. You know, like it wasn't Joe Biden who carried Philadelphia. It was the progressive movement that delivered Philadelphia, the urban centers in Pennsylvania, for Joe Biden.
Exactly.
You know, it was groups like PA Stands Up who shifted, who really shaved down the margins in counties like Dauphin, Lancaster, or expanded the margins in Dauphin, Lancaster, Berks. Like, you know, places that like Clinton lost by like 10%, Joe Biden might have lost by like 4 or 5.
Exactly.
And like, I think that they ID'd like 250,000 Biden voters this year by making phone calls and stuff like that. I mean, the work that like the infrastructure that went up in Pennsylvania, the organizing, you know, we're not seeing the fruits of this labor yet, but we
will
have essentially laid the groundwork to remake the Democratic Party.
That's right. I think that's absolutely right.
I mean, we have like, you know. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so let's look at. I mean, I want to kind of extend that what you just said, that analysis a little bit further, right? Where, I mean, we saw. I mean, we've talked about like Helen Jim talking about this on the, you know, ahead of the election, about how the Biden campaign and the kind of state Democratic Party basically kind of had no infrastructure in Philadelphia, right? Because they assumed that, okay, Philadelphia was going to go Democrat, right? But what they understand, as you're saying, progressives on the ground understood in Philadelphia, was that no, we need to drive up the margins. It's not enough just to win the districts, right? Because I mean, we need to increase the vote count, right? We need to make sure that not just like the regular people vote, but more people vote. We need a win in Pennsylvania, and we're taking nothing for granted. And then not only that, is that if you look at like Shana Danielson, for example, right? If you look at kind of like Brittany Rodas, right? You look at all the people you look at the numbers from say Cumberland County, like, and the kind of like the central PA, right? If you look at what they get, a lot of those folks may have lost their races, but they drove turnout. You had unprecedented Republican turnout in those areas, but you had unprecedented Democratic turnouts in there. And they increased those margins, and those are votes. And you remember, in statewide elections, man, a vote is a vote, right? It's not like the Electoral College. And so those campaigns, Tara Zirinsky, right, who I'm representing big time today, Tara Zirinsky, right, drove up that count in Northampton County, right, for statewide. So even though they lost the elections, right, their local elections, and we could, we talked about a little about that last week, right, about, some of the kind of the reasons for that, and we're going to talk about more of that going forward. But more importantly, like, those are victories, right? Those campaigns contributed to getting people out to vote, getting people excited to vote, and driving up those margins to ensure that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris went on to victory. And so, again, we have to look at this like statewide and not just in the kind of in the urban centers too as well, because, like PA stands up. This is one of the things that why I want to have them on Out the Coop Live, why I want to talk with them, do a little kind of debriefing on the election for that, is because they started in Lancaster, right? Not Philly.
Lancaster, Lancaster, the week after Trump was elected or president-elect, he, Jonathan Smucker and others held an emergency meeting, organizing meeting, and like 300 people showed up. When Trump announced his Muslim ban, like 2,000 people showed up in Lancaster Square to protest that.
It was incredible.
And, I drove down to that, and, that was eye-opening, something you'd never expect to see. And to watch these organizations bloom over the past couple of years and watch everyone start falling in line as a movement in Pennsylvania and organize as a movement. Yes, we have our different issues and stuff like that, but we didn't silo ourselves.
Right. That's
this year.
That's the important piece. Right. Exactly.
Everyone was doing their own work and their own thing, but we didn't stay in our own silos.
That's exactly it. And I think that, again, I think that any other version of the short term, and by short term, I mean like the next 10 years, right? Okay. I mean, that's what I think about short term. Any kind of fantasy about, like one group could do it all on their own, right? Or one kind of, group is going to expand and take over the entire progressive. It's not going to happen like that. It's going to happen just like we saw this, is that there's going to be, again, I've said this multiple times now, right? I talked about this on a Facebook Live. I talked about this on a kind of Out to Coop afterward, right? For our patron only show, is that we're going to have to be generous with each other. We're going to have our differences. We're going to have kind of ideological differences. We're going to have differences over tactics and kind of what should be prioritized in the movement, how hard we should push, when we should kind of compromise, like who we're going to build coalitions with, all that stuff. But at the very least, we got to say, okay, that is what the kind of a left democratic process looks like, is that we know, right? There's no illusions here, right? There's liberals, there's liberals who are classic liberals, kind of professional middle class folks, and there's working class unionists, right? And there's DSA socialists, right? There's populists in this movement. And that those differences of perspectives, I think that we have to value, and we have to hear each other out and, kind of have the arguments, but then have the arguments for the purpose of coming to, some degree of decision about the ways to move forward together, right? That's never going to be consensus, right? It's going to be making our cases, making those arguments, but then having those coalitions going forward. And I'll tell you, this is the last time that I felt this degree of excitement about these kind of as you said, these kind of normally siloed groups within the left, was back, 1999, 2000, with the global justice movement, right? I remember being in some of these meetings, right, these organizing meetings in Washington, D.C. for IMF and World Bank protests. And there were, kind of like grandmas who had been just like solid Democrats for the whole left, for their whole lives, to anarchists, to kind of a black nationalist, to like socialist and communist, and kind of all these folks kind of in that the broad spectrum of the kind of the broad left. And they worked by consensus, which was like, whatever. I'm whatever. They worked by consensus, and they were able to kind of work that through. And it was amazing to see people being willing to stay there for the conversation and not just take their toys and go home when they didn't get what they wanted. So let's I know it's hard. I know it's hard. I know it's hard work. I know these differences are very real, but we should keep that in mind. We need to build power now.
And I think like, we heard this a lot, like, especially from my Jewish friends, them using the term never again. Like, that is our main focus going forward. We will never allow this to happen in this country again. We will never allow this type of fascism to rear its ugly head again. Like, and that's a motivating factor for me going forward. Well,
and it needs to be.
Never again does someone like Donald Trump get in office, and get this close to destroying our country. And I mean, I never thought I would be involved in these pro-democracy protests. Mm-hmm. And it was probably like one of the most inspiring things like I've seen, like as an activist, seeing groups like CASA and We the People and, the Capital Region Stands Up, which is put on these protests and do this all across the country, all across the state. It's been inspiring seeing these, having to deal with like fascists, like over the past week, trying to interrupt our shit multiple times.
Right.
Like, and we said no. Like, we took that power from them, and like we stole that narrative from them. We weren't going to allow them to come into our state from out of state and fuck with our election, fuck with our results, so Donald Trump can remain in power.
Yep.
Like, and that's also like something, I even like talking to my mom the past week. She's been watching CNN nonstop. I mean, this has politicized her to the point where she's like, to the point saying, I hope we win in Georgia. Like, which is something like I would never thought my mom would be saying.
Right.
And using that like sore loser framework, to describe Trump and the Republicans, like that, like, got across to a whole broad people the way Trump is acting out, the way he has lost all legitimacy as a leader. We're seeing it within the international community, the media. Thankfully, the media is delegitimizing him as a leader. CNN is delegitim. Like, we have to do that. He has no legitimacy anymore, and he is now a pariah, as he should have been all these 4 years. And no, I mean, like, it's also like one of the things I want to say, like how fucking like disgraceful is it that your Republican operatives and your alt-right organizers had to come in from out of state to fuck with our elections.
Well, I mean,
like, you want to know like the long-term effects that's going to have on the Democratic Party, like that is beyond reprehensible for a political institution to do that. To have out-of-state agitators come into our state and try to fuck with our results. Like, you want motivation for the other side, for us? That's going to give us motivation years to come.
Well, look, I hope so. Sean, I hope so. But let me just say, is like that. Like, that's just, in my mind, that's par for the course for the Republican Party. Like, that was what happened in 2000.
And we weren't going to allow that to happen here. And that was our goal 5 or 6 weeks before the election, to prevent that from happening. Right.
And my point is that should, I mean, and it did. It outraged people. It should have outraged people. And this is the grounds by which people can remain vigilant. I totally agree. At the same time, we really need to remember that, right? Because, like, going forward, we're going to need it. Like, look, I know I don't want to kind of like jump too far ahead of this, right? Get too out over our skis, so to speak. But, we got a gubernatorial election coming up here in Pennsylvania, right? And we've got in 2022,
which all three.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that all three Republican gubernatorial candidates showed up to a fascist rally in Harrisburg last week.
Exactly.
And we're not going to forget that.
Exactly. Well, and this is why we got to keep on reminding, we got to keep this going on, which is why I think it's going to be really important for us to continue to focus and support these, this movement. So and this is what's got me kind of like, thinking ahead a little bit, remembering, got two things in the back of my head, right? Number one, we know we've talked about this extensively on the show, is like after in 2008, after Obama was elected, all the power that he built, right? All the power that campaign built, I shouldn't say just he built, that campaign built went to waste, right? But Obama basically just said, hey, look, I got this. And everybody said, okay, awesome. We're going back home and we're going to go, do what we were doing in our lives. We're going to forget about politics. I'm not worried about that happening again. I think people were burnt enough once they saw that when you start relying upon any politician, right, to kind of like do the work for movements, it's not going to happen, right? If it does, that's a bonus, great, right? But I think, as a rule of thumb, let's make them, let's see the proof of the pudding before we actually kind of make that judgment. So we're going to have to continue to push. That was a lesson I think that we learned from getting burnt with Obama. The second one, if you go back to 2000, and the contested election where the Supreme Court decided it and gave the election to George W. Bush, right, is that there was a huge outpouring. People were kind of like absolutely like floored by it, right, and were outraged and thought the election had been stolen, right, but the organizational capacity did not exist at that point, right? Not like we just built over the past 4 years. Right? So that's a good sign. However, going into 2022, right, why this is important, why the organizing needs to start like immediately, not just at the national level, but continue in the states, is because, I don't know if you saw this, but Nate Silver was just kind of had this piece out, basically looking and saying, you know what? The 538 forecast is basically saying that Republicans are on track to take back the House in 2022. Now again, this is based upon data and historical stuff, so this is not written in stone. Right, but this is kind of projecting what normally happens in off-year elections, is that the House, right, kind of goes back to the other party, right, or loses seats. About an average, I think he said about 27 seats usually kind of switches, right? The Republicans already made huge gains in this election, right, and sent like a record-breaking number of Republican women to the House, and they flipped seats. And if you don't think they're going to be looking at that and thinking that's where how they're going to move forward, right, that's crazy. So we need to kind of be aware of that. We
must not allow Democrats to run horrible campaigns.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Is like, this is why I think what we saw from AOC, what we're seeing from, like, say, Beto O'Rourke, what I said.
Saw us here in Pennsylvania, too.
Exactly. About the necessity of kind of focusing on the capacity and best practices, and not kind of like doing a repeat of, like organizational malpractice, which we've seen kind of not just this election, but again and again and again.
We lost 2 row offices in Pennsylvania because Joe Torsella and Nina Ahmad decided not to run any online advertising. Okay, Joe Torsella ran 0 online ads, 0 over the past year for his campaign, which he has one of the best like social media teams in state government. And Nina Ahmad was getting hammered for weeks on end, months on end. She spent more money in the primary on online advertising than she did. She ran 1 ad in October, while the Commonwealth Leaders Fund, the Commonwealth Foundation, spent months attacking her on Facebook and social media and online advertising to not have her. Now we're going to have to deal with this malpractice. This malpractice has consequences in the state. These are row offices that Democrats should never have lost.
Yep. And
we lost that because of, I'm not going to say what happened, but like that's part of it. The fact that you ran no online advertising in 2020 during a pandemic while like door knocking was not there was fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that is a fault of the campaign consultants and the people who are old white people who think that like we're still campaigning pre-internet age, campaigning pre like social media age. Like that shit has to change.
Yeah.
And the fact that like, we heard this, some of our best consultants in the movement have been blacklisted by the DCCC because they work on progressive challengers. Well, how'd that work out for you? Like, are you going to rescind that policy and let younger people into the movement? Or are you just going to have a bunch of nerds trying to run DCCC and not know what the fuck they're doing?
Yep. Well, in the meantime, we've got one of our very own here in Pennsylvania, Connor Lamb, right, coming out and saying, no. We need to go back to the center. We need to kind of retry the failed policies of the past, basically, right? That can't happen.
You know what? Fuck Connor Lamb. That's all I gotta say.
No,
He
I
doesn't speak
agree.
for the movement. Like, he doesn't speak for the Democratic Party. He thinks he speaks for the Democratic Party because he comes from an all-white area of the state. Fuck
Right.
that. You want to speak for the Democratic Party. Be like Summerlee, be like Sarah Narado, be like Fiedler, Rick Rajewski, and come from the city where your base of your voters are.
Yep.
The base of the Democratic Party isn't in Connor Lamb's district. Base of the Democratic Party is in Philadelphia, it's in Pittsburgh, it's in the urban areas around the state. We got to stop placating to these suburban votes and actually organize where our base is.
But let me just say this though too as well. Like, look, I'm willing, and if AOC did an interview on CNN this week, I don't know, maybe the weekend, someone did during the week.
But stop putting like this yoga vote. Okay, not placate to the suburban vote, but stop putting the yoga vote ahead of everyone else.
Well, no, but let's just talk about the basics of democracy for a second, right? I mean, like, is like AOC was interviewed by John King, right? I almost played some of her sound up front today, but and she's confronted. John King kind of fronts her with this kind of like Connor Lamb saying this, and Abigail Spanberger kind of saying how we're never using a fucking socialist word again, blah 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 blah, right? And I'm like, it's like, look, and I think she was right on point. She basically said something. I'm going to paraphrase here, but she basically was saying like, look, I don't doubt, and I understand. I want to acknowledge that there are Democrats that are in more conservative districts, right, that are going to message to their constituencies in a different way than I would in my constituency, right? And what AOC basically is saying is like, look, we're going to have differences because we're representing constituents, right? Our districts are different, so therefore our messaging is going to be different. So what you need to do as a candidate is you need to kind of build your brand, you need to build your organizational infrastructure, and you need to kind of be out in front on the messaging. Your constituents should know who you are, right?
Yeah, if you're
and I put this out, right? But here's my point: it's like, so I sent out this. There was this video that came out over the summer, right? It was like, and it was like looking in Milwaukee, right? This kind of like primarily kind of like African American community in a part of Milwaukee, right? And some of the organizing goes. It's a great little kind of mini documentary by The Guardian, and and they're talking about what the issues were important to their community, and it's just like I'm looking at someone like Connor Lamb saying you need to shut up about police brutality, you need to shut up about these progressive ideas. So basically, what you're saying is like everybody needs to kind of be white guy. Be conservative white guy. Everybody needs to rally around me to support me. And everybody needs to change their messaging. Screw what your constituents want in Milwaukee, in Philly, in Pittsburgh, in the Lehigh Valley, in New York. I mean, forget what your constituents say because you need to support the white guy. That's so ridiculous. I mean, the very basic thing is like, look, there are big, huge swaths of the communities right here, which you're talking about is kind of like one of the primary bases of the Democratic Party, which want Medicare for all. Right? Who have been out in front, activists, not the Democrats running for, but activists talking about defunding the police, right? And significant police reform, about the change in the way that we do things, right? That's where we see the kind of growth of these things. And so if I'm a Democratic Party candidate and I'm running in that district and I refuse to represent the issues of my constituents, then you know what? I deserve to lose. And that's essentially what AOC is saying. Is like, look, that's fine. The Democratic Party is not a unitary party. It's not like, look, the Republican Party has the benefit of being a white identity party. So they can message around white identity, and that's who they are.
Well, look at Donna Shalala in Florida.
Exactly.
She didn't lose to someone because of defund the police and stuff like that. Like the person running against her took the time to learn Spanish and speak to the Latino community. The Latin community in that district, and won because of that. It's embarrassing that Democrats lost ground with our core constituency of black and brown voters. That is the new American majority right there. Those people are put at front and center. That's why it's called NAM, the New American. And it's like you neglected your black and brown, you neglected your Latino voters, and like your opponent learned Spanish and you refused to. And look what happened. You only got in there because you knew how to raise money. So that's why she ever got elected. And you know what? Like, fuck it. Like, those Dems need to go, frankly. Imagine if Katie Porter was put in charge of PPP oversight versus Shalala.
Yep.
We saw it like
And let's remember, right? Katie Porter does not come from kind of like an inner city district.
Who flipped the district.
Right? She flipped it exactly. Right? But if you listen to her messaging and what she does, right? She is a progressive, but she's like, I mean, and she's making a case. She's actually doing things in Congress where people can look at what she's doing and say, holy crap, thank God somebody is finally fighting for us. Right? As opposed to Donna Shalala. What the hell's it? Show me one thing that Donna Shalala did. Can you name something that she's done of significance? Especially when she was elected representative. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, come on. I mean, granted, she did things when she was in an administration. That's okay. We'll put that. But I mean, as an elected representative, I mean, you compare her to Katie Porter. It's like it's a freaking night and day. And AOC correctly points out is that every single candidate that kind of had Medicare for all as part of their, in
the Green New Deal.
In swing districts, had the Medicare for all or Green New Deal, had that as part of their platform, and they campaigned on that stuff. They did not lose their seat. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying that therefore everybody should be campaigning on those things and they won't lose their seat. There's going to be some people that will lose their seats if they campaign on that. Right?
Every Democrat who signed on to Medicare for all, in the last session, won re-election.
Right, and the point
is
this:
about every Democrat besides one who signed on to the Green New Deal legislation won.
Exactly.
Like 78 of 79 representatives signed on to the Green New Deal. Won
100%. And
These
point
are
is
winning
this:
issues.
let's just put it this way: we don't even need to go as far as saying they're winning issues. I believe they are. I agree. You believe they are, right? But we can say, to claim that those issues are liabilities is just factually wrong. Right? So you could say like this. Let's just say, for example, can you determine that the reason why those people in the swing districts who signed on for Medicare for all, that's the reason why they kept their seat? I think at this point, that would be very difficult to make that claim. We just don't have the data, right? We will eventually, but we don't have the data to kind of support that. But what we can say is that despite the fact that they did those things, they still won. So you can't tell me that by campaigning on those things, it's going to lose the elections in swing districts, because it's factually inaccurate. So that's the point. And that's the point that is keeps on getting missed, right? In the kind of mainstream media talking about kind of like, this kind of like, fight in the Democratic Party. It's like, that's what AOC is talking about. Is that there's actually technical capacities of the Democratic Party that they just, do not have the muscle memory for, right? You got to exercise those muscles and be able to use them, right? They're not doing it. That was the issue. And if we care about building power as a, if Democrats in a party want to build power, these are important critiques to be able to kind of take seriously and to work on. And to try to kind of like throw it away as some sort of ideological problem, it really is, it's a sad state of affairs is really what it is. Because that's basically saying, no, we'd rather lose than address those structural issues in our party. And that's just freaking crazy. But the good thing is, right? I mean, the good side of this, right? I'm Mr. Brightside these days, I guess. The good side of it is that those folks who've been organizing on the ground for the past 4 years, who actually brought this election home, they're not going away, right? So, and I think actually it's a good strategy going forward right now to not get mired down by these people, right? To not give them more power than they deserve. Like, let them yap and yap and yap. Meanwhile, organize in our communities, right? Yeah. You say, whatever, we know what works, so that's what we're going to do. You go on and you kind of yap about you complain, you whine, and you can cry. Put your diaper on and go whine and cry about your ideological problems, right? We're going to go do the hard work of organizing. And that's precisely what we've got to do, build capacity.
Yeah.
Crazy, man. Crazy, crazy, crazy. So, before we take a break, have you got anything else that you want to kind of take a look at before we head into the break?
Nothing too much. I mean, I'm just looking over our notes.
Yeah, I mean, I put all this. I put all this. I mean, we could. I don't want to get into the minutia at this point about the Florida recount and all the kind of the Trump thing. Look, I think most of the stuff that's going on with these Trump lawsuits and stuff. Yes, you got to be vigilant about it.
Fucking dead in the water.
This is yeah. I mean, the stuff that I've been reading from
I'm more concerned about Trump ginning up his.
That's exactly. That's the
I'm
concern.
more concerned about Trump and the Republicans ginning up their white nationalist base versus
Yep.
him staying in power.
100%. We'll definitely talk about that in the next segment. So, but again, we got the other thing that everybody. I don't need to tell you that there's a special election that's going to come up in Georgia. The runoffs are going to happen in January. There's going to be a ton of money that it's going to go into that campaign and organizing capacity. I think it is a major uphill battle for those to win those 2 Georgia Senate seats. But I'll tell you, if also, we got to push and push and push to see if we can make at least one of those happen. But to flip 2 of those would be just absolutely amazing.
And also, we got to put Stacey Abrams at the head of the DNC. I think at this point. Like, no more people like Thomas Perez leading the party. No,
totally.
So I think that's where I'll end it.
So we got a comment from a viewer here. So I want to read it. This is from PGH Consumers. So while I agree with much of what you say, I also live in Connor's district, and this is a very conservative area. I actually followed him around during the last weeks of the campaign. He also changed his message from his previous campaign. Before, he was so wishy-washy, you didn't know what he stood for. This time, I heard him talking about $15 an hour wages, better health care, and so on. Look, I want to be clear. I really appreciate the comment, and I don't, especially kind of coming out of that district, is that at least from my end, I don't pretend to say that no, Connor Lamb should have done X, Y, and Z, the same thing as AOC. I'm not even making that argument, right? Really, what I'm saying is you're absolutely right. I mean, I'm not saying Connor Lamb is a complete waste, right? I recognize the things that he has done there, and I can value those things, right? Now, people are going to criticize me as kind of being whatever, kind of too complacent.
Connor Lamb should not be put at the face of the Pennsylvania Democratic Party when the power lies in our urban areas. And that's what people are projecting, in my opinion, with Connor Lamb and all this Connor Lamb talk.
That's exactly
is
it.
That they're projecting him to be something that he is not.
Right. And that's the issue more than anything else I have. Is I'm willing to look at Connor Lamb's race and standing on its own. But look, it's not Connor Lamb. It's what these centrists and the existing power structure of the Democratic Party are doing with Connor Lamb, and the reasons why they want to spotlight his words as standing in for a particular version of the Democratic Party, right? And to the extent that Connor Lamb plays into that, right, that's what he's culpable for. But it's the fact that Connor Lamb is going to get the space that he gets, right, by when he goes after progressives, that's the problem. Right? Because you can imagine Connor Lamb saying, look, I'm not going to get into this thing of kind of going against other Democrats, right? I know in my district, $15 an hour minimum wage, right? And better health care, that sells, right? That's what got me elected, right? But I'm not going to tell AOC, right, what her constituents want, right? That's the discussions that we have in Congress, and that's what we do as a party. And we figure out kind of how do we legislate based upon these kind of divergent kind of needs. Campaigning is not the same thing as legislation, right? And I guarantee you those folks in Connor Lamb's district, if we get Medicare for all, those folks are going to be freaking happy, right? If we get a Green New Deal in that area of the state of Pennsylvania, we're going to build out a kind of an infrastructure of renewables, right, where people are going to finally see that, hey, guess what? We don't need to kind of suck on the pipes of the natural gas industry, but we can actually kind of have good paid union jobs doing the work, right, of building a renewable future. That's freaking amazing, right? So, that's really kind of my core issue here. So, I really appreciate it. And I'm glad to also hear this, that Connor Lamb, this is also from our YouTube, Connor Lamb spoke to a mostly black crowd in Beaver County, was really well received. That's awesome. All the more reason we should respect a critical coalition on the Democratic side. I don't think we have any other option at this point. It's just we got to be very vigilant about not kind of looking for these kind of the white unicorns, right, that are going to deal with exactly what Sean is saying, with either just kind of a very specific segment of the electorate that is kind of more predominant in some areas and not others, right? And then to use that and extrapolate that kind of about Democratic strategy nationwide. right? I think we need to be kind of based in computing and build out the capacity. So awesome. Yeah. Cool. The last thing I want to say before we go, again, I put a bunch of that stuff about climate, that climate stuff in here. I didn't want to get into it too much today. I mean, we were still kind of stay processing the election and stuff, but it's slowly but surely we are going to have to, really. The way I look at this is that pushing hard for that, say, the Green New Deal going forward, we're going to have to hit climate running so hard and fight like our lives depend on it, because they do. It is really something else. It's a bit frightening. The pace at which climate change is happening right now is extraordinary, and the fact that we have not been able to focus on it for 4 years is deeply problematic, right? So that's why I wanted to put this back on our agenda. This is going to have to be some of the things that we were talking about here. I want to have people on the show. Matter of fact, there's a guy I've been wanting to have on the show for a while, has been looking at different strategies to kind of dealing with community-based rights or community rights as ways of resisting pipelines and fracking in kind of some of the more conservative parts of the state. Hopefully, we're going to finally be able to get that guy on. I want to talk more about climate in addition to what's happening kind of in the electoral sphere. And the last little thing was just kind of fun. Like, again, the Republicans came out and they took got all behind this whistleblower up in Erie, PA, right, who worked for the United States Postal Service. And basically there's an affidavit, said that he saw fraud being committed and all this. And turns out like all these things are turning out to be, it's just like a little paper tiger. And it turns out that, the guy, when he had to speak to federal agents, right, not just to the Project Veritas right-wing hacks, when he had to actually speak to federal agents, he's like, well, I don't really know if anything happened. I just heard some people talking, and I thought, and I assumed that this is what was happening. I didn't see anything and whatever. And so that's been kind of like thrown out. So that's always great to see, right? Anyways, we're going to kind of take a little bit of break, and we're going to come back in our next segment. We're going to talk a little bit about the wonderful 4 Seasons total landscaping endeavor, which is fantastic. We're going to talk a little bit about some things that's happening on here in PA and some of the concerns that we're having also around the COVID. And what's next for the white nationalist? We shall see. All right, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. We will be right back after this quick break.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1909. And on this tragic day, 259 coal miners died in a mine in Cherry, Illinois. The Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Railroad opened the mine in 1905 to supply coal for their trains. Most of the miners were immigrants, primarily Italian. Many could not speak English. An electrical outage earlier that week forced the miners to light kerosene lanterns and torches. A coal car filled with hay caught on fire from one of the wall lanterns. The blaze spread to timbers supporting the mine. One of the survivors remembered, "We stopped working as usual shortly before 3:30 o'clock and set out for the shaft. After we had proceeded about a half a mile toward the shaft, we detected a faint odor of smoke, which became more marked as we advanced, until it was almost unendurable. Then we knew the mine was on fire and that there was danger ahead. Many of the miners did make their way to the surface, and some then returned to the mine to aid others. Heroic volunteers attempted to rescue the trapped miners. 12 rescuers died. The mine shafts were closed off to smother the fire, but this caused many miners to suffocate from the mixture of carbon dioxide and nitrogen which built up. One small group of miners were able to survive 8 days until their rescue by building a wall to seal out the fire and poisonous gases. They drank water leaking from a coal seam. As a result of this disaster, the Illinois legislature established stronger mine safety regulations. They passed a law that later developed into the Illinois Workmen's Compensation Act.
Cherry, cherry, so soft on your heart. Not everyone knows of the story inside. At the turn of the century, 1909.
Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
We are back, and it is the season, Sean. 'Tis the season. Leaves are falling. Plants need to be pruned. Press conferences need to be held. Why not call Total Seasons? Total Seasons. 4 Seasons, Total Landscaping. How about that?
Yeah, like, so I still need to do like the deep reading into this stuff. Like Roxbury's been doing it, but I think like this is my favorite story to come out the past week. I mean, bad things actually do happen in Philly. like it is like watching the incompetence of the Trump people over the past week, like the lawyers and all.
Yeah.
Like it has just been amazing. And like I didn't know about the 4 Seasons stuff until like later on Saturday. Like I didn't know what the fuck people were talking about until I got back. Like
I was out taking pictures and stuff. What just happened?
yeah, pretty much. I mean, I was stuck on the Capitol steps. We're in between like the Capitol and a bunch of rioting fucking people, and this happened. But yes, I think the best thing to come out of that is like the responses from the people. The toy shop next door, the sex toy shop, and the crematorium.
Oh my god!
I
mean, seriously? I mean, how do you can't? That's like that would be thrown out in any kind of like script, right? I mean, you're gonna hold it at a landscaping company because you thought it was like a ritzy hotel, and it's between an adult bookshop and a crematorium. And Giuliani's the guy, the freaking like the undead man himself is the one who's giving the press conference.
I don't even know like if The Office can like come up with something this incompetent of a script.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I mean, we were talking to. I was hanging out with the NBC producers from 30 Rock last week, and we were talking about this. And it's fun talking to these people, and they were just like, "Man, I wish I was in Philadelphia for this 4 Seasons thing." Like, just like, probably like, because like as a media person, as a journalist, or like doing political shit, like that's the type of like fuck ups that like you actually enjoy. Like, I don't care what anyone says in the media. Media people love a good train wreck. Like, especially when the train wreck happens like right in front of their face. Oh my god!
Like, I think the closest like one of the like couple of the biggest train wrecks in Harrisburg recently was the Mike Stack press conference a couple years ago in his office, and like you had journalists who hate each other in the Capitol screaming to answer the other journalist's question. Like that's how bad things were going for Mike Stack. You had Kathleen Kane in the media center basically getting dragged off the stage by JJ. like there were things that were just happening. Like, yeah, like this would probably like one of the craziest like press conferences around.
I mean, yeah, this is one of the things that I'm sorry, I'm just like whatever. I've got so many things going through my mind right now.
Like the son of the 4 Seasons owner is a Bernie donor, like a huge Bernie supporter, and donated to the campaign plenty of times.
Oh, is that true?
So it's just like, yeah.
Because I kept on hearing I've been very reluctant to kind of like promote, because they're selling T-shirts, right? Like literally, they're selling T-shirts that say like "Lawn and Order," like 4 Seasons Landscaping, and like "Make America Rake Again," and "In Sod We Trust." I mean, they've got these things out there. I
would fucking buy one of these.
Well, I've been very reluctant to do it because I keep on hearing these kind of conflicting reports about whether or not they're like Trumpers or not.
I think a couple of the family members are Bernie supporters, but the owners might be Trumpers. But like still, like, and also like the part of Philly where this is in was like one of the seediest fucking places. Like, I grew up in Juniata, Kensington area.
That's like right down the street.
Pretty much, like, yeah. So like Juniata, Kensington, where I grew up, like, is nestled between North Philly, the River Wards, and like the lower Northeast. It's kind of like smack dab in the middle. The River Wards, like Holmesburg, Tacony, Fishtown, Port Richmond. Now, Port Richmond and Fishtown are pretty good neighborhoods, but like Tacony and Holmesburg, not a place you want to be. Like in the city, like, and if you catch yourself down there, Like, that's not a place you want to be during the day when your car breaks down. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that safe of an area. I mean, I grew up in that area, so I'm used to it. But like for outsiders, it's a very like industrial, like River Ward type area.
Well, this is like, I've been watching some of the like the YouTube videos that have come out afterwards, because there's like all these like, Philly-based YouTubers and that are going out to like the Four Seasons Total Landscaping, right, and shooting these like, just absolutely hilarious takes. There was like, there was so much I was like.
Did you see the historical marker people came up with this past week?
No, I did not.
So like someone came up with a historical marker for the Four Seasons Hotel.
Oh
Four
my
Seasons
god! Oh my god!
Yeah, I mean, like this, Philly is going to embrace this for years to come.
Dude, well, did you see what they're doing with the Fraud Street Run? Did you see this?
Oh, they're going from the Four Seasons to Four Seasons.
Right. I love how they frame it. Like they're going from, the famous like Four Seasons Total Landscaping to the lesser known Four Seasons Hotel in downtown Philadelphia. Right. And then check this out. Right. So the Fraud Street Run, it's gonna take place on November 29th. But and so it's going to run all through these neighborhoods, right from right along, basically along the Delaware, kind of all the way down into Philadelphia. However, the organizers of there's been so many people that have been signing up to take part in it that and given what's happening with COVID, they were like, oh crap, we just thought it's going to be a few people going to do this for fun. But it's actually going to turn out to be like a Philly marathon, right? If they go through. So they actually turned it into like a total virtual one. So they basically said, look, just go out and kind of like run 11 miles wherever you are, right? As part to take part in the Fraud Street Run. But that is just so freaking hilarious.
I hear there's going to be a toy drive at the. And also, like, reading this stuff, like, like the sex shop was there specifically to keep people anonymous. And then the owner's like, yeah, like, guys, like, my dad owned this business, I inherited it, whatever. I'm a business owner. People need their kinks, whatever. But, like, he's like, the fucking media just starts showing up. And everyone's like, all their customers inside are petrified. Because it's like, you don't want to be spotted in there. Like... like what the fuck is going on?
There's got to be footage, right, at some point. And then like the pre-roll and stuff like this, of just kind of shooting what's going on, and like people kind of like walking out of the building, then kind of like seeing the cameras and be like, oh. It's too funny, man. It's too funny.
And then whatchamacallit? Also, big props to Gritty going international this past week.
Totally, absolutely.
We got in our shit posting group. We got video of like people in France were reporting on Gritty. Like news agencies in France were explaining to French people what Gritty was. I think there has to be like a new level of respect from like foreigners for like the city of Philadelphia and how they like just partied this week.
Well, I think it's going to be a little bit of both. It's going to be a little bit of respect, a little bit of fear. Just like what Philly is, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was great.
That's awesome.
This past week, I made a ton of good connections with international journalists. I mean, in here in Harrisburg, it was fun talking to these people, national, international journalists about Philly, what it's like growing up and what Gritty is. Yeah.
I bet you that was that must have been like one of the main questions that people had, right? Like, so what is this Gritty thing? Like, I see what it is, that Muppet looking thing, but like, what? I just not wrapping my head around this thing. Oh my God, it's so fun. Well, that was if you had to put some icing on the cake, and the greatest thing about that, if all of that is not good enough as it is, right? What made that press conference like just put it absolutely over the top is that it appears that Rudy Giuliani had not realized when he walked up to the podium, he had not realized that the race had just been called by virtually every media outlet.
Oh, yes.
Right. So that not only, again, it'd be one thing if you went up there and gave this kind of relatively kind of bland press conference or whatever like this. I don't think it would have kind of gone over the edge in the same way that it did. If
And then he shot back like, "Oh, which media outlets?"
And it's like, and the journal's like, all of them. And he's like, oh, all the media, all the networks. Oh, wow, right? And that has been circulating and has been memed. Jonathan Mann, who does our kind of outro song and things like this, he wrote a song about this, which is so freaking funny. It just kind of loops some of Giuliani in that, and the Giuliani, I mean, the guy's a freaking whatever, undead troll to begin with, but to see him do that and that space in between a crematorium and adult, it's Rudy Giuliani doing that too between those two. Whatever. It was just too freaking perfect. Gotta love it. So that was a kind of well-needed
there
joy.
are journalists who I follow on. There are journalists who I follow on Facebook and Twitter, and they were just like, I wish I was at that fucking press conference. Biggest regret of 2020 is not being at that press conference. Yeah. Yeah.
It would be awesome if you had I don't know who represents that district at this point, but if you had a progressive left Democrat, right?
That's it's actually Brendan Boyle's district.
Oh, Brendan Boyle's district? Is it really? Well, yeah. Okay. Well, if you want to do it,
he posted something.
All right, I'll give him this if he wants. But next time he runs for office, he should have a press conference there. That'd be great. That'd be freaking hilarious.
He was posting. He was shit posting about the Four Seasons.
Oh God, it's great. Well, crazy. Well, so that's the fun stuff.
Yeah.
So, talk to me a little about about what the PA Republicans are up to, kind of as we're kind of moving into kind of next week. Sean, are you there?
So the PA Republicans have not. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, I got you now.
Okay, just gonna let you know my internet's a little sketchy right now, so apologies. The Republicans are going to be holding show hearings next week in the House and Senate, basically on our election stuff, and they're going to poke and prod and make baseless claims that they no evidence of to attack Act 77 and really come up with legislation to repeal parts of Act 77 that they don't like, specifically vote by mail, drop boxes, and everything else they've been fighting for. So, this is going to be another fight we're going to have in years to come, the months to come. They're going to try to, neuter our vote by mail capability. That's their own fucking fault. Donald Trump decided not to, the Republicans decided not to organize anyone to vote by mail in Pennsylvania, and they're not happy that Democrats voted by mail by a 4-1 margin, and that they want to go after the vote by mail infrastructure in the state. So
crazy, man. Well, again, it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop. I mean, the good thing is, I think that one, as you said, you talk about show hearings next week, but we should also, again, let's keep learning our lessons and learning from them. That when they tell us who they are, let's believe them. And so that's kind of they're showing their hand right here. So,
and I mean, and last Saturday, I mean, there was a Klan rally on the Capitol last week, and a bunch of the Republicans showed up to that. People who were running for governor, Dan Newser, Mike Regan, and Mastriano all spoke there, using horrible rhetoric, basically and they're continuing this stuff, and they're ginning up their base, either for the elections and stuff like that coming up. So we really have to be vigilant about this stuff for the next couple of years. What they are doing is dangerous, and we have to push back as much as we can against that.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that right now then. So because you saw that, I mean, there's been some reporting on this now. Even Newsweek had a piece on this about this kind of this rift in the Proud Boys. And again, the Proud Boys are kind of like an easy target in some ways. Because they've been in the media, they kind of stand in for a much bigger conversation. But there's this rift that was going on within the Proud Boys where, you basically had, Kyle Chapman and some others basically saying look, the problem is that we've had to be quiet. We've had to pretend that we're not Nazis, right, in order the organization. And we said we're tired of doing that. So they're going to go ahead full on white supremacy. And this is a guy who kind of headed up their kind of their street teams, defense teams, and is proposing changing the name or his division of it to the Proud Goys, right, which is even signifies even more within kind of white supremacist and kind of neo-Nazi circles. And my guess is that, you know, what we saw right here in Pennsylvania is also signaling that the kind of, you know, the white supremacy, the kind of neo-Nazi stuff, that stuff is not going away.
No, not after last week watching that. The rally behind the Capitol steps had a bunch of hardcore racist white nationalists flying their flags, wearing their colors. And like, it was hairy. I mean, it was scary being up there with these people being around. Like, you know, like we didn't know that, like, the way the Capitol Police and everything, you know, almost encouraging this to happen. It took a phone call to the governor's office from people who were there, or riots about to break out, and the Capitol Police weren't doing anything. And the Pennsylvania State Police and the Harrisburg Police had to come in and escort these people onto the back of the Capitol grounds, pretty much, away from the main rally. And, you know, what we ended up doing was taking away any media coverage that they were going to get, because we had the steps permitted, and all the national crews were there watching this go down. And, you know, like, I think last week completely delegitimized these people as a movement and showed the world what these people are. Like, you know, like, it's finally getting through to, like, people like my parents, or at least my mom, like, who these violent white nationalists are, and the people we've had to be organizing against the past 4 years.
Absolutely. So crazy. So there we have it. I don't think there's a lot more to say about that, except that
I don't know. Like, I guess, like, no, you're good.
You're just breaking up pretty bad. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I wasn't saying anything.
Oh, okay. No, it's like, you know, I mean, there's a reason that Sean has been following this stuff for so long. There's a reason why we've been talking about this on this podcast, is that, you know, and all we saw once again over the past 4 years is that we saw, you know, Trump and a Republican Party that has, like, helped stoke these flames, and they're not going away. There is some Matt Binder who does, you know, he's back on the Majority Report now. He does, like, Thursday afternoons in the fun half, and he's got his own podcast called Doomed, and he follows, you know, this right wing internet culture very closely, and he's convinced that this is what's going to happen with the QAnon crew. That QAnon is it's not going away, right? But it's going to go in these kind of directions of kind of like building up this kind of conspiracy base coupled with kind of overt white supremacy moving forward. So they're going to be something that we're going to continue to track. One thing I want to talk about, what we're going to see in Pennsylvania, that, you know, the COVID numbers are absolutely spiking. That the numbers of COVID in across the state are record, you know, having record highs. I mean, they're dwarfing what we saw back in April.
And we could thank Trump for this.
Totally.
For fucking campaigning.
No, totally. I mean,
for endless campaigning around the state.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, holding his super spreader events, right? I mean, that's essentially what one of those problems. And right now, there's some CHOP, you know, the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. We're down talking to folks in Montgomery County about this, because they're really considering whether or not to kind of go all virtual in schooling. There's been a lot of pushback in Montgomery County despite the spiking of cases. In Bucks County, for example, where I am at, we've got the head of the Bucks County Health Department basically saying, no, we should not go to virtual learning. That everything is working just fine, stay the course, which is really kind of makes your head spin, because on the one hand you got the CHOP doctors and scientists basically saying we need to stop this, or the schools are going to be spreaders. Then you have the head of Bucks County Health Department saying, no, you need to kind of stay with the plans that you've got right now. Now, it's really unclear about what the plans are going to go forward, and I'm really concerned. Everyone you talk about,
is this guy a Republican plant?
Sean, I have asked that question to multiple people. Nobody seems to know. This guy is, I've been on several like board of education calls, right, for our school district, and he's been on some of those calls, and I listen to this guy talk, and I'm like, I can't put my finger on it, but there's something about his role here that is really messed up. And again, this may just be his opinion. Now, again, like, he's careful to qualify his words, right? And I think, like, he's always saying things like, we should stay open for now, right? He's saying right now. And again, if you look at our school district, where kind of we're at, we haven't seen cases spiking, but we have, for the first time, we have 2 cases in the elementary school, right? We have got cases that are coming up at the high school, right? There's been other districts like Council Rock, for example, shut down, right, because of spike of cases. And he seems to want to stay the course. And so I don't know if you call him a Republican plant, but he's certainly, this guy seems to be cut in the same mold that like Kenneth Hawkinson, president of Kutztown University, is, right? This idea that we're going to kind of do the grit and fortitude thing, and we're going to mitigate, and we're just going to plow it through. And, my big concern is that this is just going to exacerbate community spread. And that this is why you had kind of, Rich Askey, the president of PSEA, come out and say, look, we have state guidelines. The state guidelines say if there's more than 100 cases per 100,000 residents in the county, we're supposed to be moving over towards virtual. At the very least, right, we should be not 100% in person. It should go to a hybrid at the very least. But those are, again, we've talked about this before. These are just recommendations coming from the state education department and the state health department, and individual school districts are making their own decisions. And frankly, I have no freaking clue how this is going to play out. I have my fears, certainly, and I'm looking at the math, and I'm listening to some of these kind of like scientists and epidemiologists talk about what's going on with COVID, and seems to me that this is a bad decision to like not lock down. Why not just say, okay, we got holidays coming up, let's shut down now and reopen back and reassess and reopen back in January, right? I mean, I that would seem to make sense to me, but who the hell am I? So look, I mean, all I can say, and yesterday, right, was 2 weeks from Thanksgiving, right? So I got that right? Yeah. And what the recommendations are nationally is that if you want to spend time with family on Thanksgiving, you need to quarantine for 2 weeks ahead of time. Well, yesterday was 2 weeks. And it seems very unlikely that people are going to do that quarantine. And it seems very likely that there's going to be lots of people that are going to gather for Thanksgiving and kind of say, hey, like, we'll just do our best. And then we're going to see kind of more outbreaks. And I worry about that. So, again, we'll keep an eye on it. And, I would love to hear people that are kind of, following what's going on in Bucks County. I'd love to hear people's takes on what's happening in countywide, because I'm really concerned. And this is, I got on this Board of Education call from down Montgomery County. I think it was county officials. I'm not sure where it originated. I think more than the county. They had these CHOP doctors on. Then there's this other doctor. This woman comes on and she's a doctor, right? And she says her husband's a doctor, and she's saying no, kids need to be back in school. And it's like, these messages, because there is no coordinated center. Everyone is just freaking out for their own. It's like, it leaves parents, right, and people in the community in a very precarious situation. Because this is not the kind of thing that is about your individual decision. This is the kind of thing where you need to have a community response to it, and we just don't have it. And so I'm really concerned. And I just hope people are going to keep it in their head that, like, look, there is no vaccine until at least April. That means we're going through the worst months of this pandemic ahead. So because there's a vaccine in the future doesn't mean like, hey, we don't need to do this anymore. No, for God's sake, please just do the right thing. Wear a freaking mask. Do the social distancing. Do not gather in large groups. Right? They're saying right now in Pennsylvania, the main cause of the spread are weddings, family gatherings. like parties in people's house parties. That's where the spread's coming
I
from.
heard someone who got sick. They were at a Halloween party with 100 people there.
There you go. There you go. Kutztown University, they were kind of all celebrating. Hey, look, our cases went back down to 0. Right? In the back of my head, I'm looking at kind of what all these people are saying, all the scientists are saying. They're like, yeah, not for long. And sure enough, cases start going back up again. Kutztown University is now number 1 in the state system of higher education in the number of coronavirus cases. Number 1. And, right, it's about number 5 in the state. Like Penn State is a freaking disaster. There's like something like 3,800 cases there. 3,800. I'm just like, you talk. I mean, it's like literally, it's like a black spot in the middle of the map.
Because and that is because the influence Penn State has on our state government.
Absolutely,
with
100%.
Jay Corman being in Senate leadership, and the money the developers are making, like the Penn State and the developers and all the private contractors in Center County are putting their fucking money in front of the health and wellness of Central Pennsylvania.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, you look at this, and so, you know, what you have, it's the bigger universities decide to open up. You see big outbreaks at Temple. You see outbreaks at, you know, again, we had somebody on the show from Temple organizing. I think it was one of the first Out to Coop Lives we had this year, talking to student organizers who were organizing at Temple to kind of prevent the openings. And sure enough, Temple's got a huge break. But Kutztown, which, like, in terms of its size, right, is significantly smaller than, say, Penn State, Temple, University of Pittsburgh, and so on. And yet we're like number 5 or 6, right? And in terms of like colleges with the most number of outbreaks. It's just freaking nuts. So whatever. So stay safe, everybody. Seriously. And I know that the impetus is going to be, especially in the wake of the win by Biden and Harris. It's going to feel like that weight is off, that you want to get out and celebrate and be around other people. And like, I get it. I can't even tell you how much I get it. But we got to get through this, right? I mean, if you ever want to kind of say, suck it up, this is a perfect example of when you should suck it up. It's like, we got to be in this one for the long haul. We organize for the long haul, and we keep each other safe. That's what we got to do. Anyways, last thing, once again, I just want to kind of say, you know, my condolences, personal condolences go out to the family of Hannah Varn, who was a 31-year-old arts administration graduate student who was from Iowa, who was found deceased in her in Dixon Hall at Kutztown University's campus. We don't have any more details about her death, but it's really devastating. And I know there's a lot of people that are hurting. Our thoughts go out to her family, her friends, and the people who, you know, who've been involved with her life at Kutztown. I didn't know her, but I've lost a student before, a student that was just like an amazing human being. She was killed. This is what I'm thinking of in particular. She was killed in a car accident on 222, an area on 222, which incidentally has been one of the most dangerous segments of 222, and people have been fighting to try to get the road widened and safety precautions put in, but the county has resisted it, and she was killed there, and that wrecked me. And I could only imagine that in the midst of this pandemic, with the strains that have already been placed, about how much of an impact this is going to have. And if you recall, one of the things that we started doing with, let's say, Healthy Campus Bill of Rights at Kutztown University, what faculty members and the union members have been fighting for over the summer was to say, look, there is insufficient psychological counseling services available for students. That students have been talking about how they've had to wait kind of like days and days and days when they're in kind of like they're in emotional crisis, right? When they're in mental health crisis. And, you know, I can tell you that from my experience talking with students, that the impact of COVID-19, the lockdowns and all this stuff has had an impact on all of them and has made it very difficult. And they're looking for opportunities to kind of, you know, talk to folks in counseling services. But Kutztown University has not met the challenge. They just want to rely on grit and fortitude, as President Hawkinson says, grit and fortitude, as opposed to actually providing services for the students with a predictable uptick in the need for psychological services. Now, again, I'm saying that in part because this is going to impact a lot of people, right? Whether or not they knew her or not, people are already on edge. They're already feeling stressed out, and this is going to kind of, I think, add to that. And I'm really concerned about it. So, our thoughts go out to her and her family and everyone who knew her. So, anyways, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. On that note, we're going to take a little break, and we're going to come back with this week's last call. Stick around, everybody. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. For the past 7 years, Raging Chicken Press has brought pull no punches, progressive reporting and commentary to the interwebs. Our long-form investigative pieces, stories that no access journalist wants to touch, or rollicking weekly podcasts strive to advance progressive movements and perspectives rooted in the struggles happening across the country or down the street. We've broken national stories and caused our share of discomfort in the halls of power. If we want a progressive future, we need progressive media. And you can help support Pull No Punches, homegrown progressive media today. Become a member of Raging Chicken Press for as little as $5 a month. Simply go to patreon.com/rcpress and choose your membership level. We need to make sure to keep the movement in the media and the media in the movement. Best way you can do that is to become a member of Raging Chicken today by going to patreon.com/rcpress. Thank you for your energy, your encouragement, and your support. Keep up the fight. Welcome back, everybody. Sorry, a little kind of glitch right there. For that, my bad. Kind of an abrupt restart here. The intro music was not playing correctly. Sorry about that. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor, founder of Raging Chicken. We're back here with Sean Kitchen for this week's Last Call. We talk space news. We talk beer news. Other kind of cool stuff that's going on in here. So I do want to return. I've taken a little hiatus from the space news for a bit, just because the election stuff was so front and center. But I'll say two things for today. Well, it's kind of a three thing. But first, tomorrow, from the Kennedy Space Center, we're going to see the actual first official NASA and SpaceX Crew 1 mission to the International Space Station. There's going to be 4 astronauts going to be launching. It's going to be a diverse group of astronauts, international astronauts going to the International Space Station. And this will be, something that we are going to see a lot more of going forward, right? So we know that during the Trump administration, we know that, say, Mike Pence is a space head, right? He's kind of committed to go on the moon. I'm convinced that there's a religious undertone to that somehow, right? Whatever, getting closer to God or whatever the hell it might be. But he's like, whatever, pro-NASA. They appointed Jim Bridenstine as a NASA administrator. And, you got to say is that, Bridenstine has been all about kind of returning to space exploration. The problem, of course, is that the absolutely critical work that NASA does when it comes to climate research and climate science has taken a hit under the Trump administration. While NASA has been able to kind of expand and kind of increase its funding and attention and prioritization to kind of returning to the moon through the Artemis program, but also kind of say deep space exploration. So there's been a lot of interesting stuff that's going on in NASA, but the problem has been it's been at the expense of climate science, which is not what we need, right? So, however, he has made an announcement this week that I'll give the guy a little bit of credit here, because he said, look, I'm going to leave the agency when Biden takes office, and I'm going to do it because I don't necessarily think that we see eye to eye and stuff, and the incoming president is entitled to someone who shares their vision, right? So I give the guy that amount of credit, at least, basically saying, I'm not going to share this kind of vision. I think we should go in different, so I'm going to step back. I'm not going to be like a sore loser like the Cheeto-in-Chief is. But Biden has already come forward and now has already announced the transition team, right? Which is astounding, which is pretty amazing. we've seen kind of major moves on here, but looking at the NASA transition team led by a woman who was the former NASA chief scientist under Barack Obama from 2013 to 2016. She's currently the head of the Smithsonian's Air and Space Museum. She is kind of well positioned to take the reins of NASA, which is fantastic. And was a kind of really good piece in Business Insider that was looking at what are some of the likely developments or what directions they're going to go. So what it seems like is that one of the priorities is going to be is kind of like a return to some of the strategy during the Obama administration, which means that a return to climate science, which is absolutely essential. To basically make sure that the climate science that the NASA is doing is funded and supported from the administration. You have the team of scientists that he has already appointed to this. Here you have. I'll just give you a rundown here. There's Jedediah Eisler, an astrophysicist at Dartmouth College who studies supermassive black holes. Bhavya Lal, a space policy strategist who works with the White House Office of Science and Technology and Policy. Walid Abuladi, another former NASA chief scientist who's now at the University of Colorado. So really science forward, focus on leadership, which is phenomenal. Jim Bridenstine was not that. Jim Bridenstine was kind of a political actor. Now we're going to see the scientists kind of back front and center, focusing on climate science, which is pretty amazing. Some of the things that is also interesting, in addition to the climate science, they do looks like the commitment is still there to go back to the moon through the Artemis program. However, it's going to be more closely paired, at least according to the folks that were interviewed for the Business Insider article, closely paired to a House bill that says we want to be back on the moon by 2028. And that actually aligns more directly with the funding streams. Right, that was one of the problems that Bridenstine said we're going to go back to the moon by 2024. I've always thought that it was pretty much a Trump publicity stunt to kind of say yes under my administration, to kind of claim that. But the House said 2028, and that looks like it's going to be more doable as part of the process. One of the other things a couple other significant things that we're likely to see going forward is that we talked about this a while ago on the podcast, but funding was set to run out in 2025 for the International Space Station. It looks like that the people that Biden seems to be kind of putting in office are probably going to push for continuing the International Space Station as a joint government-funded project, as opposed to handing it over to private companies and privatization. So that's good news in my mind, if it comes to bear. The final thing, which I thought was kind of like quite interesting as part of this, is that, and we should keep our eye on, right? Because that my little hobby horse has always been about galactic capitalists, right? That they're going forward, is that most of these folks and looks like under Biden that we're not likely to see a pulling back from this kind of mass privatization. As a matter of fact, it looks like you're probably going to continue to be on track to providing kind of like the capitalist expansion into kind of near Earth orbit and beyond. So I'll read you this piece from Reuters. It says, quote, according to Reuters, which spoke with officials close to the Biden campaign in late October, the president-elect plans to continue promoting competition between companies like Boeing and SpaceX. NASA's Commercial Crew Program has been funding Boeing and SpaceX to develop astronaut-ready spacecraft to fly to and from the space station. Those contracted missions are almost certain to go ahead. So we shall see. We shall see. We shall see if there's going to be a continued ramping up of this. My guess is it's going to be laissez-faire when it comes to the privatization of space. So it's something we're still going to need to hold on. I recently came across this podcast, by the way, which I'm gonna forget the name of right now, which is horrible. I meant to look it up ahead of the podcast today. Really cool podcast. I'm going to see if I could get the guy who runs the podcast on to talk about some of this stuff. Seems like somebody who's right up my alley. In terms of the space thing. Oh yeah, it's a fantastic. It's by a guy named Paris Marks, and he's got a great podcast called Tech Won't Save Us. He's wrote some great pieces on the Jacobin on space policies. He's got this great podcast on technology stuff. Kind of super cool guy that I'm going to be kind of reaching out to for the future shows too as well. So that's my space news for this week. Hopefully that's kind of more joyful than some of the crises we had. The other thing that I want to point to is that Free Will has got some amazing releases. Once again, Another roadblock is a new beer, a Hellesbach Lager. It's a collab with Annihilated Homebrew Club out of Lambertville, New Jersey, and it was they were the winner of last year's Philadelphia German Society's homebrew competition. So this is a beer, a Hellesbach Lager that's crafted with adherence to German tradition. It's been lagered for cold for 6 weeks, and it's going to be ready to go. They say it has notes of brittle biscuit and a touch of ginger snap, and that comes in at 6.8 ABV. That's a kind of nice. That's a nice range for Hellesbach Lager. I'm psyched about that. Special cookie back again, right? They always bring this out for the holidays. It's an imperial spice brown ale with vanilla, cinnamon, brown sugar, cardamom, ginger, and milk sugar, inspired by the popular European speculous cookie. Traditionally consumed as a holiday treat before St. Nicholas Day. Comes in at 10.8 ABV. And I got to say, when the first version of Special Cookie that came out, you may remember me saying this last year, I was not a huge fan of it. When it came out last year, they've been like changing up this recipe and last year it was great. So I'm actually really looking forward to it this year. So that's going to be available. Tomorrow, the Black is Beautiful, Free Will's collaboration, the Black is Beautiful version is going to be a robust coffee porter, and that is in collab with a Harris Family Brewery, and they kind of talk about themselves as the first urban craft brewery, right? Run by, again, African-American family. It'd be a collab also with First Sip Brewbox, which will bring in the coffee, and that is going to be available tomorrow. That is Saturday. Draft pours and cans are going to be both at Percy and Peddler's Village. Okay, and now the moment that you maybe have been waiting for, or at least me have been waiting for. Ralphius 2020 variants have been announced. I'm so excited. So now, if you know anything about Ralphius, the Ralphius is it's pretty intense. Comes in at like 11, so on, maybe even 12 sometimes ABV. I come out with different versions of it every single year. It is absolutely fantastic. They are going to start taking orders at 9 a.m. On 9 a.m. I'm sorry. Whoa, I'm messing up. 9 a.m. on Saturday, November 21st, right? And that's going to be for pre-sale that will be picked up on Black Friday, 10/27. All right. So you got to pre-order this, and they do sell out. So if you want to kind of get some Ralphius this year, some good stuff, I do highly recommend that you pre-order. They usually hold some back, but it's out there. So here's the list. You're going to have the Bitters Barrel Aged Ralphius, which that one I have to say is that's a new one, I believe, and I'm very intrigued. The Chocolate Orange Ralphius, a Cinnamon Chili Ralphius, Coconut Chocolate Ralphius. They had that last year. It was I think it was a white chocolate coconut chocolate one last year. A Coffee Ralphius, Decadent Chocolate Ralphius, Double Barrel Aged Ralphius, Maple Walnut Ralphius, just a regular Ralphius. Rum Barrel Aged Ralphius. I gotta say, I'm not a huge fan of the rum barrel aged stuff, except for the 5th of May sour that they put out, which is really, really good. That's just a personal preference. I'm just saying that. They have the Rye Whiskey Barrel Aged Ralphius, the 2-year aged Ralphius, and Zin Whiskey Barrel Aged Ralphius. That I have a link to these, so you can gotta click on it in the show notes today. You want to go and check all that out, so you don't have to kind of remember it or write it all down as part of the show. But oh my God, my mouth is watering already. So that's what I got, Sean. That's what I got, man. And I'm looking forward to it.
Sounds good. You might have to get me some Ralphius.
Yeah, I'm going to try to. It's going to be, I have to say, I bring my own COVID concerns to this one because the last time I was, I'm going to hope and pray that they decide to open a separate entrance for the distribution of Ralphius. They, given the kind of the change of the regulations around kind of reopening, they had the pickup was in the main tap room for orders. They used to have it in a separate room. So last time a couple times ago I was there. I went in and I had to wait in line, and I did not like that one bit. But what I'll have to say is you can order that online. I assume that they're going to do the same thing they had recently. My most recent pickup, when I got over there, you actually have, they say now that actually if you show up, they have curbside pickup where you can actually just kind of call the number when you show up, and they'll bring it out for you. So I would strongly recommend that. People love this Ralpheus, and I'm sure there's going to be a ton of people around Thanksgiving that are going to be picking up beer from Free Will. So please be safe. Use pre-order, do the curbside pickup, and stay safe as you do it, because it is so worth it. So of those that I read, do you have any particular favorites, Sean, that you really want to try?
I don't know. I like the original, maybe the rum barrel as well, or the rye whiskey.
So you like rum barrel stuff?
Yeah, I've had rum barrel stuff before. I would say that or the rye whiskey barrel. The rye whiskey would probably be really interesting.
That was the one that I would have picked for you, right? I would have picked the rye whiskey one for you.
Yeah. So
I have to say, last year. Well, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say last year. I think they did this last year. The cinnamon chili. That one was great. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah. Crazy. So you had so there we have our beer recs for the week. I got my video's even freezing up a little bit today now. This is whatever. I think it's part Zoom too as well. I think that's part of the deal. But anyways, so you had a kind of an interesting week this week. So you we're out there with your camera, doing some major coverage out there in Harrisburg, and now you have to quarantine for 2 weeks.
Yes. So I'm now quarantined for a couple of weeks. I was going to be quarantining anyway, just because of all the rallies and stuff we were around. Yeah, I mean, a few of us came down with COVID. I'm assuming I have it. I'm not showing any symptoms yet. Hopefully I don't show symptoms, but I'm staying in just out of the caution of the people I was around, or, because we were outside for these rallies and stuff like that. And there were a bunch of Trump people without masks screaming in our faces all day last week. So, I heard one of the producers we were with got COVID. And so Roxbury has a test coming in. He's not showing any symptoms yet, but neither am I. So knock on wood, everything will be fine. I don't show anything. Yeah, I got some great pictures over the weekend. I'll definitely walked back on Saturday. Thank you. Yeah, I walked back on Sunday and Monday to show Dasha Brown and Chris Jansing the photos I took of them, which, they absolutely appreciate it, which was awesome. So it's amazing seeing how big of a rock star people treat Chris Jansing as. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
I gotta say that one picture. I gotta say that one picture you had of Chris Jansen, sitting kind of cross-legged on the ground, prepping for a segment. That has got to be, I think, my favorite of all the pictures that you took.
Thank you. She loved that. I got the photo of Dasha Brown as MSNBC was making the call, or NBC Universal was making the call for it. So they're getting ready to go live from Harrisburg, which was awesome. They were taking selfies of themselves and all. Two of my favorite photos. I got asked to shoot this from PA Stands Up, and when they asked, I went out, ran a lens right away from borrowlenses.com, which is a great online service. It's the third time I'm using it. So, and this is the third or fourth time I ran the lens that I got, which was the 35 millimeter 1.4. Fucking amazing lens, especially for nighttime and all that when all those photos were taken. Mm-hmm. I am definitely going to be buying that lens in a couple of months. I asked my parents, they asked me what I wanted for Christmas. I said gift cards to B&H Photo. And
did you have to sit on Santa's lap?
So hopefully I can knock a few $100s off of that before I buy that. But I'm buying that 35 millimeter lens, going to be using that in the future. That lens did not come off my camera once this whole weekend taking photos. So every picture that I took and published online was taken with that 35 millimeter, which is an awesome prime lens. The photos, I said this before, but I think this is one of the things I'm most proud about pretty much in my career right now. like this photo project. Either with the stuff I've been doing, like the photos I got out of this were fucking phenomenal, and I'm definitely tooting my own horn about it, but no, it's something I'm proud about. And I've been putting up some like prints in my apartment, and I made like a little thing. I might just take the eye hooks out that I put in, changing up my mind now, and get a couple really large prints made. I was like 11 by like poster sizes. Like 18,
I think you should do that. I totally think you should do that.
Like 18 by 24 photos of the one of my friend Hani with the headdress.
That's pretty amazing.
Behind the Capitol.
Yeah.
That one. Yeah. Like that was the one that like everyone, that photo went completely viral within our neighborhood. Because Hani is, part of the trans community, trans male, who is also part of the drag community as well. So we have a really awesome LGBTQ community out here and a really like active drag community out here. So like they're part of that. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, honey, I have to get your photo of this. And they didn't want to do it. And I'm like, no, get in your fucking photo. Like, this is going to be great. And it came out phenomenal.
Oh, it did. It did.
And then the other one, my favorite photo is the lady with the Statue of Liberty.
Yes.
Having that framed up with the Capitol. Like, there were photos from this past week that I was like actively looking, comparing to others online. Mm-hmm. And like, there's no reason why I can't get into photojournalism. Like, after looking at the photos, like,
not to toot your own horn or anything, but you're freaking great.
No, but I mean, like, no, I think like these are like, I got so many portfolio shots from this rally.
Yeah.
Like, I got more portfolio shots, I think, that from these rallies than I did like the previous like year.
Yeah.
No, I'm starting to print my own stuff. I'm gonna make a couple large prints for my wall behind me, and yeah, and I'm definitely going to look at. I got my photo book, the pictures in order. I ordered some prints this week of Tara Shakespeare from the portrait I took of her at the RGB rally.
I saw you put that again. Yeah, that's a great one. Yep.
Figure out like which papers I want to use. I think I'm gonna go with the silk, which has like a nice texture to it.
Which one is that? If you're looking at that, you know that one.
I'm kind of pissed that I spent.
Yeah, you know that one you posted. You got the four prints. Which one is the silk?
The silk is on the right hand side.
The right hand side.
So it has like a richer color to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The monochrome comes out really nice. Yeah. One of the things I'm gonna be doing over the next few weeks is putting the photo book together and try to sell some of them. But anything to help knock down the price of that lens.
Grifter got a grift.
Hey, you know what? But at least I produced results. But it's been really nice. A couple of those photos are stuff that I want to have in a portfolio and pretty much take with me for the rest of my career, because one, like, it was really amazing shooting this. It was a blast shooting that, and it was awesome being asked to do that too by the movement. And
yeah,
no, I mean, like, I wanted to have a portfolio to bring that shit with me for jobs down the line and show people what I can do. So I'm really proud of it. Never really thought I'd shoot something like that, but no, it's been amazing. And now I'm in quarantine.
And now you're in quarantine. You got to pay the price. Got to pay the price one way or another. Yeah.
But I mean, like, yeah, a few of my friends came down with COVID this weekend from different parts of the state. So, people wear your masks, yeah, I mean, the shit's spreading, and you can thank Trump for that pretty much.
There you go. Well, I don't think there's a better kind of piece of advice that we can give out to kind of close out today's show than wear your freaking mask, be safe. I know it's tough being cooped up. I am certainly not immune. Let me put it that way. To wanting to just get the hell out and just gonna do some things. It's hard, but stay strong, everybody. Keep yourself safe. Wear a freaking mask when you're outside. And have that. So anything else for the good of the order, Sean?
No, nothing too much.
Cool. Well, we made it through without Sean's internet completely crashing today, so that's a huge bonus. I know that the video was a little bit kind of laggy at moments today. I'm gonna have to see if there's anything I could do on my end about that. It looks like some of it was happening at the Zoom level, however, so we shall see. Thank you, everybody who tuned in to YouTube today. It was great seeing some of the comments and some of the discussion there. Very, very cool. And thanks once again to our patrons and members who have been with us since the very beginning, back in 2011, to our most recent members who have joined. Just Jamie, I think, was most recent patron who joined us just a couple of weeks back. So please, if you can, become a patron by going to patreon.com/rcpress and choose your membership level. You may have noticed in the at least on the video feed, right? I never plugged this before. I don't know why, but you can also go to paypal.me/rcpress. That's paypal.me/rcpress, and just throw us a little kind of tip in the tip jar. Like, you don't have to become a patron then if you don't want to do it on a monthly basis, but you want to shoot us kind of like $10-15 here, $25 there. Who knows? Maybe you got an extra $100 burning yourself in a hole in your pocket. If you want to shoot our way, any bit would be appreciated. You can throw it in our tip jar at paypal.me/rcpress. Or more importantly, what kind of sustains this podcast, what sustains Raging Chicken, are our patrons and members. Just go to patreon.com/rcpress today. Choose your membership level. You can become a member as little as $5 a month. Thank you all for tuning in this week, everybody. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. Man, I still feel like I'm exhaling. Got that weight off my shoulder. Looking forward to the organizing and power building ahead. See y'all. See ya!
My face, my arms, can't tell if I exist. Am I the sky, the rock, or tree falling in the forest? I had a friend once, at least I think I did. I almost can't remember exactly what a friend is. There are no people in the future. No people. There are no people in the future. No people at all. There are no people in the future. Where did all my people go? There are no people in the future. Let me try my people.